like a little fake hello. Hi everybody, welcome back. We are now finishing thinking about the thematic paper, and we're going to focus this session on our essays in particular, thinking about the essays, the big ones, the 12 markers. So we are thinking about what we need to do. Suggestions we've had so far are break down the question if the wording is hard. That is brilliant, Chloe, because some of them you can read it quickly and think, oh, it's asking me about that, but actually it's asking for something slightly different. And really, as everyone's essays get better and everyone gets cleverer and everyone gets working harder, the examiners have to find ways of, well, how do we sift out the best essays? So really, to get the top marks, you want to make sure you're doing basically exactly what it's asking. And sometimes it's like kind of got two parts to it. I will have a look at some and see that. So Chloe, that's great. Salome, plan before, brilliant piece of advice there. Just have a quick bullet point plan of what you're going to write. Don't have to write the whole thing out in the plan. You've got 2-3 minutes to plan it. I just do like a simple table, boom, boom, for, against, and put my point in, maybe my quote in, and then circle the one that I think is the strongest. If you've only got a couple, if you're tight on your time. Structure, absolutely. Quotes, brilliant. And evaluation really needs to be in there to get into that top bracket, evaluating which side is stronger and why. And if you can have that in your intro, then again in your conclusion, then and then through your paragraphs, you're showing it throughout. Okay, so I put the link to this in the chat, so hopefully everyone can see. My tips for a 12 marker. Clear line of argument. So what is your thesis? What are you arguing? Do you agree or disagree with this statement? So that when you bring in a side that agrees, you can say, well, is that strong or weak? Is that convincing or not? When you bring in a side against the statement, you say, well, is that strong or weak? So that you are doing it all the way through. Don't just wait till the end to do like a big reveal. And I think this throughout is the way you're going to get the higher marks if you're evaluating throughout. At least 2 quotes that are explained. So they're not just like stuck in, oh, quick, I've got to stick a quote in. Explain it. Well, how does it link to your point? Why are you using it? How does it link to the person who agrees or disagrees? And like, why does it add weight to it? What's the point in adding it in there? Those explanations are as important as the quote. Reference to religious ideas and teachings. So you can use quotes, but you could also use religious ideas like sanctity of life, or the creation story states that, or, the idea of pacifism, that Jesus was a pacifist, for example. And you can answer from one religion in these, as long as you've got 2 different sides. So you don't have to have like 2 different religions in there, 2 different religious quotes and ideas, but they could be from the same religion, and it could be those 2 sides. The only one that's a bit different to that is existence of God, because you may need to write on a religious view and then a non-religious view. If it's something like visions or revelation or something about God's existence, the exam board obviously recognizes you're not going to have a paragraph from a religious view that God doesn't exist. So existence of God, theme C, 1 paragraph could be the religious, 1 paragraph could be non-religious. But what I think is to get 2 religious things in that religious paragraph, because then you are still ticking that box of references to religion, which pushes you up to the next bracket. Evaluation, showing why you are arguing that way. It's better if you show it throughout. I think it's just say it in the beginning, you say it in your paragraphs, and then you say it again in the end. My sister taught me that when I first started writing essays. She said, you say it again, and then you say it. So that's what I think you should be bringing it all the way through. So my structure I like is to say, this essay will argue the statement is this, really super short, just 1 sentence, like decide, after you've done your little plan, what's my essay going to argue? 1 sentence at the beginning, and it just focuses you. And also, if you run out of time, you've already done it in the beginning. So if you run out of time and you've said it in the beginning, you're already using that evaluation. I then always go for a paragraph in favor of the statement. So who would support this statement? And I would say, on the one hand, Christians or Muslims, or I might say liberal Christians or fundamentalist Muslims. Who is it would agree with the statement? And then I go into my explanation. Then I say whether that's a strong or a weak argument. If I'm for the statement, then I'm going to say it's strong because that's my side. If I'm against the statement, I'm going to say it's weak because it's not my side. So that's what I mean about it going all the way through. And then, oh, I pressed the wrong button. And then on the other hand, you would say the other view on the statement, the against side, who would say it and why, what the evidence is. And then I bring in evaluation again. I say, this is a strong or weak argument because, and it has to be based on what I think. If I'm against the statement, I'm going to say it's strong. If I'm for the statement, I'm going to say that's weak. So that's really if you're aiming for like 10, 11, and 12 out of 12 in your essays. If you are someone who's like, that's not the level that you're aiming at, because you just really want to kind of get that 7 or 8 or 9 out of 12, then don't worry too much about that. But this is for people who really want to get up there and get into that top bracket. I'm just thinking of all the people who might be watching this later, worrying about doing that. And I've got videos on that as well, and there's lots of help online to see before you go into the exam. And then I would have a summing up statement at the end over all the statements and why, which side is stronger. So that I've said it at the beginning, I say it in each paragraph, and I say it again at the end. It's running throughout the whole thing. Any questions about that right now before we go on to some ideas of different essays? Also, in each of them, I have got a lot of religion mentioned. I've said Muslims, Christians, Quran, Hadith, Bible. Don't forget to bring religion into these thematic essays. We'll look at some and you'll see that sometimes it does always say in the bullet points underneath that you've got to do, you know, the different things, but the title doesn't always say religion in it. And I think that's a little bit sneaky, because you could accidentally write a whole essay that's brilliant about war without ever mentioning religion, and you're only going to get 6 out of 12. So let's have a think about these. When I say the letter, I want you to just put either for or against in the chat, okay? Everyone who's on here today. So I'll say the letter. I want you to think about it and just think, what would you argue for or against this statement? Are we ready? Hands up if you're ready. Boom. Yep, a few hands raised. Brilliant, lovely, lovely. Okay. Okay, let's go with men and women should have equal rights within a religion. For or against? Just put for or against. Just write one word. What would you argue? Anyone else? I was going to set them up as polls, and I thought, oh God, it's going to take ages, and we're going to spend ages like trying to fiddle and set them up as polls. But later we'll plan one together on something altogether. Okay, so we've got 2 votes for. Okay, great. What about the second one? I'm going to go to you. What about B? Retribution is the best aim of punishment. Now look, that's a sneaky title. It doesn't say religion, so you'd have to bring religion in. So in terms of religion, could you argue that religious views would say that retribution is the best aim of punishment? I've got Salome and Harmony and Chloe feeling very confident with their theses. Is that the others of you thinking or not sure, or a bit like, oh, I don't know what I would say in that? What would you, if you saw this week, what would you argue, do you think? What would you argue? Great. Is anyone else, who else have we got on the call that might be able to tell us? What about Otto, Tiber, Yasir? What do you think about that? Do you think retribution is the best aim of punishment? Okay, great. So you could say, I mean, those ones are great, aren't they? Because you can revise all the kind of reasons why each of them are good and then use them against each other. Retribution is not the best aim of punishment. Deterrence is. Because deterrence stops the crime happening in the first place, which helps protect lives, sanctity of life. We could say retribution is not the best aim of punishment. Reformation is, because you're changing the criminal for the better, which is what Jesus came here to do. I came to reform the sinners. Brilliant. Okay, next, let's go. Last ones we've done. Special revelation is stronger proof of God's existence than general revelation. Special revelation is stronger proof of God's existence than general revelation. And if you don't know what those words are, I've got a video on that you can watch, or you can obviously revise it, because that could be something they ask. They ask this quite a lot about revelation and how is God revealed to humans? How do humans know about God? Is it special revelation where God appears to a person individually, and there is that direct revelation of God, revelation of the Quran to Prophet Muhammad, Jesus seeing St. Paul, Mary seeing Bernadette? Is that direct stronger than general revelation, where I look at nature and I think, oh, isn't that beautiful? There must be a God who created such a wonderful world. Or where I hear stories of other things that have happened to other people. Against. Oh, great. That's interesting, isn't it? I wonder. Sometimes I sort of flip between it. I think special revelation is really strong proof to the person who has it. That's one thing you could say, isn't it? To the person who has that special revelation, of course it's going to be really strong because it's actually happened to them. But general revelation, you could say, is perhaps stronger proof because everyone can access it. Very good, young philosophers today. Okay, fantastic. So let's have a think about what questions have been asked in the past and what hasn't been asked for a while. So what I've got here, and I'll put it in the chat for you so you can have it, and I'll add it if I'm, oh no, I didn't want to do that. I'll add it if I when I upload this as well. I'll put it so that people can access it. Here I've put all the past questions for themes, for all 4 themes. The Existence of God one isn't typed up in a nice way yet. I might try and get that done for you. If not, you can still read it. But that has got all the past questions for all the past themes, all the past years on our 4 themes. Remember, you do not do B or F. So you cross out your BF, and these are the other 4 that we left in your paper. So you can have a look through that and think if there's anything. Shall I share it on the screen? If there's anything in there that would be completely shocking, impossible, you wouldn't be able to do it. It's also good to read through just to familiarize yourself. Who was it that was saying, Otto, knowing about the structure of the exam? Well, this is how it's worded. This is how it's been worded in the past. So it gives us a bit of an indication that it'll be similar to how it's worded in the future. So hopefully, Otto, if you just look through those and familiarize yourself with how they're phrased, you could even take that and you know, pick out keywords from each of them. You can see what it might look like for you this week coming up. So we've got, I told you the themes one's a bit different. Oh, great, got more people coming. This is all the past questions. Hi, Calta. We're just thinking through the past questions that have been asked for this paper. Every single one that's been asked is in this doc, which I'll put in the chat for you. Or I can just recopy it, can't I, and put it there. And then we're going to have I don't like predicting, but I want us to think about ones that haven't come up as 12 markers recently, because that could come up. If it doesn't, it could be a 4, 5, 2 or 1 marker as well. So it's like 4 things. Hopefully we can just whiz through together some quick plans and then do one all together using a different website. So that is that helpful to see those, everybody? I know it's a bit tiddly now, but maybe you can have a look at them between now and when the exam is and think about, well, how do they phrase it, and would I be able to do that, and which one would I struggle with, and then go away and have a little revision of it. But the one on the end column is the most recent ones that have been asked for all 4. So that's for you there. But I looked at that and thought, okay, there are things in each topic they haven't asked for a while. It could be a 12 marker. If not, it's still worth doing it because it could be a 4 or a 5 marker. Okay, so let's do that together. So the 4 things that I thought were, oh, it'd be helpful if I was still sharing my screen, then you could see it. And I'd quite like you to write it down if you've got a pen and paper. Has everyone got a pen and paper? If not, then you are maybe typing or just thinking. It's fine if we look at the time. Questions that haven't come up as 12 markers for a few years. Views on homosexuality in marriage and family. Secondly, existence of God. They haven't asked a question about suffering in God's existence. You know, the problem of evil, does that prove there's no God? They haven't asked that for a while. Peace and conflict. They haven't asked about weapons of mass destruction for a few years. They did in 2020, but they haven't done for a few years. Lots of the other questions have been around fighting and war, pacifism, but this specific one about weapons of mass destruction, they haven't asked for a couple of years. And then crime and punishment, they haven't asked on the death penalty for a few years as well. So they are things that could come up as 4 markers and 5 markers as well. So it's worth us just recapping them together. So if you are ready with a pen and paper or somewhere where you can write things down, just give me a high 5. Great. Brilliant. Okay, I'm going to take that as a sign that everybody is. And like I say, I'm not promising you that this will come up, but these are my hunches of what I think would be good to be aware of before you go in. So let's have a think then about each of these. We can do it together. Let's have a think. Oh, I'm just going to just do it like that. Oops, here we go. For each one, I'm not going to go into massive detail. We're just going to do a for and against with a religious thing on each side, and then you're going to make up your own mind about what you think overall, like which one would you argue was stronger. Okay. Can you see it if I do it like this? Is that big enough? And then it'll all be on one page for people later, which is good. So let's say our question on homosexuality is, I'm going to phrase it like this. All religious people should accept. Okay, who could argue that, religious people should accept homosexual relationships? What group or which religious group could you argue would suggest that, yeah, that's okay? Should be accepted. Liberal Christians. And then what evidence would they use for that? Any quotes or any viewpoints? We could have love thy neighbor because it's more loving to allow people. We could have where there is love, there is God. Jesus said, do not judge. Fantastic. And I also like where there is love, there is God. It's like love is the most important thing. And if it's a couple that are in love with each other and they're loving each other and supporting each other, they should be allowed to. Liberal Christians would argue, now I've made it to, I can't see what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm just going to get rid of that. Great. You could also, yeah, brilliant. Okay, good. What about, and I'll make that bold. What about against then? Who would argue against that? Who could argue against that? We could stick to Christianity. We could bring Muslim views in. Muslims. Why would many Muslims argue that it's not acceptable? Or I'm going to say traditional Muslims. The story of Lot, exactly. So the story of Lot, which you could also use in Christianity. If you're answering Christianity, you could say fundamentalist Christians because of the story of Lot. So this idea that the great sin was what's why their towns were destroyed. But obviously for each side you could give the counter argument depending on what your thesis is. So just decide for yourself, what would you argue for or against? Hi Jessim, good to see you. We are just going through some suggested essay titles that could come up because they haven't been asked for a while as essay titles. So you can then decide for yourself your thesis, whether you're for or against, whether you would argue that they should or shouldn't. You could say something like, actually, it should be down to individual choice and you shouldn't be forced to think one way or the other. You know, there are reasons for and against, or you could argue for or against for that. So make sure you put your own thesis in. Yeah, Christianity, you've got the quote that's like, and there it could say it's Adam and Eve. This is why God, man will leave his family and become one flesh with his wife. So think about those quotes as well. Brilliant. You only need one for each, but you can obviously then explain it and give the evaluation. So you have to decide. That one I'm going to leave to you to make your decision. Okay, I'm just helping you with the points of it. You would have to make your decision. Suffering in God's existence. What would be a question? Would be the existent suffering. Suffering in the world proves that there is no God. Could be the statement. For, who would argue for that? Now this is tricky because it's not religious. I said you've got to put loads of religion in, but remember this is theme C, so you can bring non-religious views in. So atheists would argue, I don't need to write the whole thing, atheists, or you could, yeah, that exactly. Why? What evidence would they use? I know we haven't got religious quotes, but what evidence could they use? Should we say natural evil? Natural evil and disasters that harm a lot of life, that harm innocent life. Brilliant. And who would argue against that then? And let's try and get two different religious views in because we haven't got a religious view in the first one. Muslims would argue that what? That life is a what? So the Quran teaches that for Muslims, yeah, testing is part of the plan because the Quran says we shall test them with fear and hunger to see if they really are a true believer or not. And what about in Christianity? Does anyone know? I mean, it's the same. There's a prophet who's used in both actually, who is tested by God, but what God allows the devil to test his faith to see if he's really a genuine believer. You can use the story of Job. Have you heard of him, Job or Ayub? And remember, you don't have to answer, you won't be asked specifically about Christianity in this one. You can answer both from a Muslim perspective, which is great. And then you decide. Okay, what about weapons of mass destruction? So if you've joined us, remember, we're looking at these because they're topics that haven't come up for a while in the paper, and I can resend you the link to all the past questions that we've had. This question can be, okay, I'm going to do a sneaky one that doesn't say religion in the title because I always put it in because I think it helps. Weapons of mass destruction help to keep the world safe. So I haven't got the word religion in there, but I've got to make sure I bring religious views in. So which religious view would support that? And not that everyone in that religion thinks this, but the religion itself, we said earlier, there's only one group that we could use for this. There's only one. There's only one group that's like officially got this as their kind of policy statement, declaration. Yeah, fantastic. Exactly. So Roman. It's a deterrent because it is mutually assured destruction. If I use them on you, you're going to use them. It's like a shootout. You know, if I shoot my gun, you're going to shoot your gun at me. And it's like that with nuclear weapons pointed at each other. And so they say, therefore, it keeps it safe. So it helps actually stop wars escalating because no one wants to get to that point. Stops more deaths happening. Do not kill. Whatever you did for the least of these people, you did for me by helping people, by not killing innocent lives. It's helping them. Therefore, it's a good thing. It keeps the world safe. Okay, but what about against? Who could argue actually they're not good to have, they don't keep the world safe? What religious view could we have? Remember, the title doesn't have religion in it, but we're going to bring religious views in. Quaker Christians, brilliant, fantastic example. Pacifist Christians, I'm going to put in. Why would they argue they don't keep it safe? We shouldn't have them because they can harm too many lives. Do not kill. They can harm too much of the environment, and God wants us to protect the environment because God saw. But we could also have in Islam the idea of the lesser jihad, not harming innocent life, and making peace is better, for example. Okay, great. And what about the final one, a death penalty? Let's try another one without the word religion in the title because they could do that. Death penalty. Capital punishment should threat of capital. Is that too cheeky? It was Chloe who was saying, wasn't it? Or Harmony, you got to like look at all the different parts of the question. What about this one? The threat of capital punishment would keep us safe from criminals. Who could argue, yeah, that's fine, we should have the threat of capital punishment? Who could argue that? So for the death penalty, basically, this idea of keeping us safe from criminals, because it would act as a what? I'll make those bold for us. Any idea who would support maybe the idea of capital punishment? Some Muslims support this because in Sharia law it is a punishment. But was it only ever meant as a threat? Was it actually only meant as a deterrent punishment? Also, Christians. United States has a high rate of death penalty being used in certain states because it says eye for eye, tooth for tooth. But who would argue against that? Did Jesus ever use or support the death penalty? Anybody know the story that was related to Jesus and the death? Oh. Jesus was a pacifist, yeah. But what else? Hi, Ethan. We are going through some essay titles that could come up, or at least topics that could be in the exam, because these are ones that haven't been asked as essays. They might have been worded like this, but it's sort of the same topics. They might not even come up, but I'm just saying that having looked at the past questions, these are the ones that I thought might come up because they haven't come up for a few years. And we're just thinking about the death penalty. Does it keep us safe from criminals? Does it act as a deterrent, basically? They could phrase this like, you know, the death penalty is a deterrent from crime, but sometimes they phrase it a little bit differently and you have to sort of decode it. So this one is asking, is the death penalty a good deterrent from crime? And we've said, well, yeah, because some in Sharia law, some Muslims would support the death penalty. It's a punishment handed down, so therefore it's going to help protect. Christians might say the eye for eye, tooth for tooth. If you take a life, your life should be taken. That's going to put people off doing the crime if their life will be taken. However, many Christians would be against it because Jesus didn't use the death penalty on the one time when he was kind of supposed to, because he was supposed to stone, this woman was supposed to be stoned to death for adultery. And he said, anyone know what he said? Whoever has not sinned can cast the first stone. But also, does the death penalty stop people being criminals? In the United States, where they have the death penalty, is their crime rate lower or higher? Yeah, it stops them being reformed, exactly. But in the United States, the states that have the death penalty, do they have less crime? They have more crime, because it's almost as if people are then willing to, if they think their life is going to be taken if they're caught, they are willing to kill more people to not get caught. So it's like the crime rate actually is higher in the states that have the death penalty. So the evidence doesn't seem to suggest that. So many Christians in the United States argue these things from Jesus, but then also if we want to link it to the specific of the question, does it keep people safe? Well, in the United States, the states that have the death penalty have a higher crime rate. So it's almost as if like, yeah, people are more willing to kill to not get caught if they think their life is going to be taken. Plus, you have the argument that, you know, you've got the miscarriage of justice. It could be someone who didn't do the crime that gets caught, and all of those arguments as well. Okay, great. I think that's the trickiest phrasing that I did on the last one. But sometimes they do that with the phrasing. They sort of ask in a way that you've got to kind of decode it a little bit. Okay, I'm going to, just before we go, have a quick look through. I wonder which would be, pop in the chat which of those, and I might phrase it differently, which of those areas do you want to spend a little bit more time doing just for the last few minutes together today? We're going to joint plan an essay together. Which one do you think? What should we have? Religious and sexual relations, suffering in the workplaces, no God. Maybe suffering, weapons of mass destruction. I'm going to give you 10 seconds, and if you don't pick something, I'm going to pick one. Weapons of mass destruction, capital punishment. Okay, I think I'm going to go with weapons of mass destruction. Is that all right, everybody? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to call okay, I'm going to give us a Kialo, so you don't need to sign in or have a login or anything. You just need to hopefully you should just be able to click on this link and then join my debate. So click on that and see if it lets you in. Does it let you in? Can you see this? Do a hands up if you can see this on your board. Yeah. Brilliant. So everyone who's in, I want you to, and we're going to do it together. Brilliant. Fantastic. I want you to now, instead of typing on the chat here, you're going to type in either something that supports or goes against that statement. So we're going to try and bring religion as well, but as many things as you can to either support or against. Now let's check it. Countries should not have weapons of mass destruction. So this is against those weapons. Nuclear weapons, it might phrase it. Nuclear weapons, weapons of mass destruction. Countries should not have them. Why should they not have them? I'm going to put something in. They should not have them because I'm just going to put a simple one there. Accidents can happen and many lives can be lost. Brilliant. Oh, fantastic. I've got you in here. So everyone, let's write in some comments, then we'll do a bit of voting and decide what we would argue overall. They can act as a deterrent. And I'm going to put in... Great. Oh, I think we need a few more on the for side, don't we? I don't know how we're gonna. Okay, I'll try and argue the for side because that's the one that might be the hardest to think about. The against side, sorry, the for weapons of mass destruction. That's what I mean. Countries should not have weapons of mass destruction. I'm going to say. I'm going to say, practically, how would you ever get countries to not have them? They're never going to all put them down at the same time. Everyone's going to keep a secret stash, aren't they? So, yeah. Right. Okay, let me see what else we've got here. The Bible says, yeah, the Bible says, brilliant, to bring a Bible quote in here. I'm also going to say that why should they have weapons of mass destruction? It's very difficult to argue why they should have weapons of mass destruction. Very difficult. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes it's a necessary evil good. Yeah. Okay. Fantastic. Goes against us. Oh, it goes against just war theory. Fantastic. Then you can start to vote on the different claims and we can decide which side we think is stronger. So who's, yeah, some would consider it. Stop more deaths happening in more wars. Yeah, brilliant. Fantastic, everybody. Well, let's see if I can do some more. Do not transgress the limits. Yeah, good. Okay, I'm going to try and do some more. I love it when it becomes a different, you know, different shapes. What else have we got here? Who can I argue against here? It goes against existent is immoral because they can cause. Yes. It's very hard for me to argue for that side, you know. Any other views from everybody? So then you can go along and sort of vote on which ones you think are the strongest. I think that's a very good one because that's a really good quote that is, you know, oh, hopefully, can I vote on it? Oh, I used to be able to vote on it. Yes, so you can decide. Oh, enable voting in the settings. Oh, sorry, everybody. Enable voting, yeah. You should be able to vote now. Yes. So now you can vote on the ones that you think are the best, which helps people when they're planning essays. Because obviously you're not going to write all of this in your 12 minutes, are you? They act as a deterrent. I think that's quite a strong one in that it's a religious view that we can use, and I want to just remind myself that that's the only religious view that would say we are allowed to have them, not necessarily use them. What else do I think is strong? Okay, brilliant. So what else have we got here? Any other views from people? And what do we think overall? So you can do your voting on them. Fantastic. Is there any other questions anybody's got for our last couple of minutes that you want me to quickly tell you or talk to you about before we go? I wanted to leave you a bit of space to ask me. We can carry on doing this, or we could do, we've got 4 minutes, so maybe we haven't got time to do a second one of these. But you can have a look at this. Maybe who can I argue back? They can act as a deterrent. They stop more deaths happening during wars. They prevented. If any of you would like to do any essays and send them to me on Google Classroom or email them to me, you can. Between now and then, I don't mind having a look at them. If you're watching back this video and you want to do that, that's okay. I'm Miss Marks. You can find my email, or yeah, you can reply to me, and I don't mind having a little look at them. Yeah, any other questions at all about the exam coming up, everybody? Is everyone just still happy in here? Money would be better spent. It goes against the growth. Money would be better spent. No, yeah, it just seems to have. Anything else from anybody? Everybody still happy just typing away? You can see it like this as well. I prefer it like that. Yeah, sometimes it's unnecessary evil. Okay, I'm going to take a little screenshot of that to send to your teachers to show them your great work. If you've got any other, I'm going to stop the recording.